Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Also, for those of you interested in FanDuel.com, the promo code for new accounts to save money is Dwyer777. Now, yesterday I made a video just talking about how Tony Bellew had called out David Haye. Bellew wants that fight, right? And some people in the comment section pointed out that I didn't really discuss the fight. What I discussed in that video was just the fact that the heavyweight division was in play. Now, I know I'm in the minority, and that's fine. I usually am. But I feel that Bellew against David Haye is a competitive fight. I do believe that Tony Bellew, who's 6'3", right? I do believe that Tony Bellew would be a live underdog in that fight, right? The way to beat David Haye, in my eyes, is the way Tony Bellew beat Nathan Cleverly. Let me go one step further. As an aside, I believe the way to beat Sergey Kovalev is the way Tony Bellew beat Nathan Cleverly. Smother him, right? Get inside, lean on him. Make your weight and your size an issue. Force a guy who likes to throw punches at mid to long range to deal with you at short range. Right? Now, David Haye fought Derek Chisora. Chisora is a front foot heavy fighter. Right? I personally thought that while Haye was winning the rounds, Haye was running out of gas. You might recall there was an issue on the number of rounds in that fight. They made it 10 rounds. Now, we've seen Derek Chisora go 12 rounds against numerous tough opponents. I don't believe Derek Chisora asked for 10 rounds. I believe David Haye did, and he needed the shorter distance because Haye was completely spent in the middle of the fight. Right? The reason you can't jump in on a fighter like Vladimir Klitschko is because Vladimir Klitschko has a great jab, and he knows how to use it to keep you off of him. He knows how to frame it. Now, David Haye has extremely fast hands, right? Punching power is just part of Haye's game. But I don't believe David Haye has the great jab to keep a Bellew off of him. So if Bellew can get inside like he did against Nathan Cleverly, and I understand, Cleverly is a much lighter puncher than David Haye. But if he gets inside on Haye the way Derek Chisora was able to, I think Bellew's a little bit more creative, a little bit more unpredictable than Derek Chisora. I feel he would give Haye a very hard time. Let me say this too. I know boxing fans really are caught up on weights, right? You know, they believe the bigger man has the advantage against the smaller man. Let me just point out that Bellew and Haye are roughly the same height, right? There are times where a smaller guy fights bigger than the bigger guy. David Haye is not a guy who likes to lean on you. He doesn't use his core, right? He doesn't use his torso to try to muscle you around the ring. Let me point out, nor does Deontay Wilder, right? These guys really aren't physical. They're heavy punchers, right? But they're not a George Foreman type guy who's going to lean on you. In my opinion, Tony Bellew, and I know he's lighter, but in my opinion, Tony Bellew would probably weigh 215, 220 for the fight. And I believe he would throw his core around more than David Haye. Didn't that second Bellew fight go the distance? Tony would be in it for the long haul. He'd have to deal with Haye's hand speed and power, but he could smother those. Right? I believe getting inside is a skill. Let's talk a little bit further about the small guy having a style that's going to give a bigger guy problems. You know, Kovalev actually sparred with Golovkin, the middleweight champion. Right? According to reports, it was the middleweight guy who got the better of the light heavyweight current champion. Right? You could see that happening based on styles, because Golovkin is comfortable mid-range, two-handed attack, throws heavy punches. Not Golovkin, Kovalev. Whereas Golovkin has ring coverage. He hits you from outside the pocket. Right? The tough guys on Golovkin would be the guys who could get deep in the pocket. And that's not Kovalev. Right? So I believe Golovkin would have a shot on Kovalev today. Even though there's 15 pounds of gap between the middleweight division and the light heavyweight division. So, just to be clear, and I know I sound like a loon, great, but I believe there's a place to make profits between the reality that styles make fights. Some bigger men don't fight big. Some smaller men fight big better. Right? These weight classes are a bit of a construct, aren't they? Right? Tony Bellew was starving himself to fight at light heavy. He lost to Nathan Cleverly. Then, of course, he gains the weight. He fights at cruiser. Bellew's stronger. Bellew has more body mass to throw around. He bullies Nathan Cleverly at cruiser. Right? Bullies him. How do we know that Bellew isn't really a heavyweight? Right? Bellew might be thinking about jumping to the heavyweight division out of necessity. All right, let's shift gears and let's talk about an upset that I believe is going to happen. Right? You just saw Kovalev go the distance against Chilemba. Right? Now, Chilemba's very savvy. He's a slick boxer. He has a lot going for himself. Right? He can survive against Tony Bellew and Sergey Kovalev. Right? Think about it. He survived, gone the distance in fights against the reigning light heavyweight champion and the reigning cruiserweight champion. Right? He's a survivor. Here's the problem. To me, in boxing, it's not just skill level that matters. It's talent. Right? You're going to run into people who might not know or have the experience of an Chilemba. Right? Might not have been in the ring with Tony Bellew and Kovalev, among others. Right? Chilemba's a guy who fights a lot of tough competition. But talent is what it is. Hand speed, an ability to shift weight, foot speed, power. Right? Maybe the guy throwing 95 doesn't know how to pitch like the veteran who throws 85. But wow, those extra 10 miles an hour, they matter, don't they? I believe Chilemba loses his next fight to Olympic bronze medalist Oleksandr Gvozdyk. Right? You need to pay close attention to this Ukrainian fighter. Right? Again, it's Oleksandr Gvozdyk. This guy is smooth. You remember Ishmael Shalak from a few years ago? This guy is smooth like that, right? He's just fluid. He's gifted with some of the best legs in boxing. As you see him jump around the ring, it almost doesn't look like he's supporting his own weight, right? He moves much better, and I mean much better, than Chilemba, who is almost certain to be heavily favored in this fight because of his resume, right? More importantly, this Gvozdyk guy, who has a hand speed advantage on Chilemba and is older than you think. He's late 20s. He has an explosive right hand. It's explosive, right? And he's so fluid that you don't know when he's going to throw it, and you can't tell that he's loading up on it, right? I just don't see how Chilemba is going to deal with this guy's gift of smoothness, right? I think Chilemba's going to have a hard time catching up with this guy who's a better athlete. Chilemba doesn't have the big punch, right? He's a craftsman, right? But he doesn't have that explosive punch to take you out. Chilemba also prefers, in my opinion, to be on his back foot more so than his front foot. So that's going to give a guy with foot speed who can move around the ring and pop in with big-time explosive straight right hands. That's going to give him an opportunity. The other thing, too, is not only is Gvozdyk mobile, but he's hard to hit, right? He knows how to shift his upper body. He's fluid. It's as if he's on ice. And he knows when he gets inside and you throw on him. He knows how to lean. He knows how to make you miss, right? That's a talent not everyone can be taught. Let me point out, too, that this Gvozdyk guy has a great teacher. One of boxing's best trainers, the guy they called Grandpa when he was in his early 20s, Robert Garcia. Right? So, I want you to compare and contrast Najib Mohammadi's fights with Sergey Kovalev and with Gvozdyk. You're going to be shocked. Right? Gvozdyk just looks so smooth. Right? He's a boxing guy who knows how to fight in a traditional style. Right? Mohammadi does land a lot of jabs, and that's very troubling. But people need to realize that Mohammadi is very awkward. Right? I don't believe Chilemba's going to land the number of jabs that Mohammadi was able to land against Gvozdyk. So if you're a gambler looking for a potential upset, I encourage you to look at Chilemba's next fight. I'm taking the guy fighting him, right, for the hedge. Because I have a hard time seeing this guy Gvozdyk ever caught up with, the hedge would be Chilemba by decision. Right? So I like Gvozdyk to win the fight. In fact, let's be more creative with the hedge, because we want a chance to win both sides of the play. Right? I like Gvozdyk to win. I'll hedge it with not Chilemba by decision. Rather, I'll hedge it with the over. Right? If Gvozdyk wins by KO, which is a possibility, great, you win. But since Chilemba is a survivor who has survived against big hitters, right, guys who now have belts, right, I think the most likely outcome here is that the challenger undresses and outboxes Ike Chilemba. Right? If Chilemba wins a decision, you're covered because you have the over. Right? But you should juice the odds a bit by putting some on the underdog who, quite frankly, if the fight were even money and I had to pick a side, that's the guy I would take. So I like Oleksandr Gvozdyk over Ike Chilemba. I'm going to hedge the play with the over. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.